I used to work as an international business lawyer on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and I've had the privilege to go to some pretty fancy places. I've spent a lot of time learning how to speak in a compelling way, and it has enabled me to get every single job I have interviewed for at the salary that I asked. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 4 skills that have been the most impactful in my life so that you too can speak like the 1%. If I start speaking like this and the whole video goes like this, like if I was reading a script, you're going to drop off pretty quickly because it's boring and it's difficult to actually process the information that I'm sharing with you right now. But if I slow down and give you the time to really process what I'm saying, you're going to be paying much more attention. And that is because for the brain, information that is slower is easier to process. And when information is easier to process, it is considered more truthful and persuasive. As a public speaker, when you vary your pace, you involve 2 areas of the brain responsible for thinking and feeling, as opposed to 1 area of the brain if you have a monotone delivery. And the more areas are activated, the richer the experience for your audience. The best way to test if your delivery puts everyone to sleep or keep people's attention is to see how your audience reacts during a work presentation. There you have a double challenge. You are delivering information not only orally, but also visually with your slides. And I think there are no debates about the fact that PowerPoint presentations can be a little bit boring. So I'm going to share with you 5 things to never do in your PowerPoint presentations that if you stop doing, you're going to see a radical increase in interest from your audience. The first thing is to stop reading what is written on your slide. When you read to your audience exactly what is written word by word, you create what we call a redundancy effect. The brain is processing the exact same information delivered orally and visually. It is extremely underwhelming, and that is the reason why your colleagues stop listening to you when you do this, and why you stop listening to your colleagues when they deliver their presentations this way. Instead, your PowerPoint should be a visual aid. What you say is the primary thing your audience should be paying attention to, and you should use your slides as a visual aid to illustrate what you're saying. The second thing you should stop doing if you want to be a more compelling speaker is to have more than one idea per slide. Presenting one idea per slide is going to make it much more digestible for your audience, and going through your slides quicker is also going to make your presentation more entertaining. If you look at any kind of content, there are lots of cuts, and the more cuts, the more entertaining. Third thing that you should stop doing is to have lots of lines on your slide. And to make my point, I'm going to do with you a little experiment that I learned on David Phillips' TED Talk, which I highly recommend. Your challenge in this little experiment is to count as fast as possible the amounts of dots that you're going to see on the screen. Ready? Let's go. So if you're a normal person, you might have spent around 1.5 to 2 seconds counting these dots. Now let's try again. For these ones, you might be under the second or around a second. And now let's try with these. This last one took you a fraction of a second. Why is that? In the first 2 instances, you had to count, whereas in the last instance, you were able to see. And the number we're able to recognize just by seeing is the number 6. So on each slide, to illustrate the one point, the one idea that you're making, you should only use 6 lines, 6 bullet points, because beyond that, it is going to require your audience to make the cognitive effort of counting, which is dreadful, tiring, and boring, especially if the next slide is also a big information overload. The fourth thing that you should stop doing if you want your presentations to be compelling is to use your PowerPoint as the reminder of what you should say, which is usually the reason why we read our slides. You should know what you're going to say in the exact order and use your PowerPoint as the visual aid. Yes, it's going to require more preparation on your end, but it's going to have a bigger impact on your audience and therefore push your career faster and further. And finally, the last thing that you should stop doing is to talk at your audience. Most presentations, especially in the corporate world, have as the objective to show your boss that you have done your work, whereas it should be to help your colleagues understand something so that the collective work can be better. Because what do we see in somebody who wants their colleagues to advance? A leader. And what do we want in the people we want to promote? leadership. So make your audience participate, just like I did with the little experiment. If they're not involved, they're not going to remember any of the things that you said anyways. And if you were to implement only this, you would see a drastic change in how you are perceived as a professional. The second thing that you should do if you want to speak like the 1%, which you might have heard before, is to listen more than you speak. But what does it really mean? If you are at a networking event or a business event or a retreat, you'll want to make as many and as deep connections as you can in a short amount of time. How can you do that? It is definitely not like what most people do, which is talking about their achievements, talking about the people they know, or talking about the fancy places that they've been to. Rather, you're going to build deep, meaningful connections rapidly if you listen and ask questions about what you hear. It has actually been proven by science that talking about ourselves activates the reward system of the brain the same way chocolate or money does. And in the study I have in mind, the participants actually refused money so they could keep on talking about themselves. And science has also shown that the people who were making it possible for the subject to talk about themselves were seen as more charismatic and interesting, even though they hadn't said anything about themselves. So here is how you can be that person. When you meet somebody, ask about them with genuine interest. And for every single answer that they give you, ask a question about that answer. Pleasure to meet you. What brought you here? I'm in charge of event marketing. I organized the whole event. You organized the whole event? Yes, I did. That's fantastic. Seems like you have a lot of experience organizing events. Yeah, quite. I've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years! I actually started at X company and then I moved on to X companies 2 years ago and blah, 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 blah. As this character, I did two things to keep the conversation going. I mirrored and I labeled. And these two techniques alone can have your conversations going pretty far. Mirroring, first, is the act of repeating the last sentence or last couple of words that the other person has just said. You organize the whole event, whereas labeling is putting a label on the person based on what they just said. Seems like you have a lot of experience organizing events. These techniques are extremely powerful because they get people to talk about themselves without having you reveal anything about you. They won't look artificial if you're using them genuinely, and they're going to turn you into that person who enables others to talk about themselves and activate that reward system in the brain. And that is a really strong relationship glue. You absolutely don't need to only mirror and label in your conversation. But if you are a little intimidated, these two techniques will help you get the conversation started. Or if you don't know what question to ask, you can fall back on these two techniques and they will get the conversation rolling again. The third skill every top speaker has is the ability to have a relaxed posture. And body language instinctively overrides spoken language. Your body language will always reveal your true emotional state. And as a compelling public speaker, the only emotional state that you should convey is confidence. What does confidence look like in the body? Confidence is, at its core, the absence of fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being misunderstood, fear of failing. The absence of fear in the body is going to look like relaxed shoulders, open chest, head high, calm breathing, deep voice. And interestingly enough, you can easily fake confidence in the body to others, but also to yourself. And that's because there is a strong connection between the body and the mind. If I ask you to think about something sad, for example, a war, the images of the war and the ideas of the war are going to start triggering some uneasy feeling inside of your body. Conversely, if I ask you to think about something happy, so for example, somebody you love or your happy dog, then the emotions that you're going to feel in your body are going to be very different. And as you can see, it is pretty instant. So the same way the mind impacts the body also impacts the mind. If you take, which you can do right now, a very closed position, like you're protecting yourself, and then to think about thoughts of success, you getting your promotion or making lots of sales in your business. It's not as easy to have those thoughts in that very contriving position. But if I ask you to have the same thoughts, relaxed, head high, shoulders down, chest open. It is much easier. The way you decide to place your body in space is going to impact the kind of thoughts you're able to have and how easily those thoughts are going to flow. Something top speakers do is to practice their confidence pose and to associate it with thoughts of success. The repetition of this practice is going to create new neuronal pathways in the brain so that the pose itself becomes an anchor point of confidence. And this shift alone will make for a very charismatic speaker. And if you would like a personal audit of your strengths and weaknesses, I offer a small amount of private consultations each month. We go over your speech patterns, your delivery, your posture, and every place where you are leaking authority and leadership. I also analyze and correct your wardrobe so that you can position yourself as a leader. You will receive the personalized roadmap over 90 days showing you exactly what actions to take to substantially advance your career. And if after implementing all of my advice you haven't seen any change, I will work with you until you do, free of charge. If that is something that would benefit you, I invite you to apply through the link in the description. I review every single application myself to ensure that there is a mutual fit, and I look very much forward to meeting you. And the fourth skill that will make you a top 1% public speaker is the ability to tell stories. Tell me which delivery makes this fact more interesting. Science shows that wearing a suit makes people twice as likely to comply with your requests. Or a man attempted to cross at the same pedestrian crossing multiple times. He repeated the situation under two conditions. 1. Wearing a smart business suit. 2. Wearing casual clothing such as a hoodie and jeans. Hidden observers recorded how many drivers stopped to let him pass. When the man was wearing jeans and a hoodie, about 25% of drivers yielded. But when he was wearing a suit, about 50% of drivers yielded. Stories are the way humans have communicated information through time. I started this video with telling you about my story and my experience on what you were about to learn. When you want to communicate, be it to share a fact with your team or to make more sales, always ask yourself if you can tell it through a story. If a CEO wants to announce that all of their female employees are getting paid menstrual leave, she can do it two ways. Way number one, she's going to say, I have great news. We are giving paid menstrual leave to everybody. The news is good, but the delivery could be much better. She could also say, which would definitely increase her position as a leader, as a woman myself, I experience every month the difficulty of having to juggle between menstrual cramps and professional obligations. So I've talked to Lina, Fatima, Yao, and I've seen that they struggle with the exact same thing as I do. So it got me thinking, how can I best support the women who make this company thrive? Speaking like the 1% requires you to believe that people want to hear what you have to say. And if you say it using the techniques I've just shown you in this video, they evidently will. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you've learned a lot. If you have, I invite you to subscribe, and I will see you very happily in the next one. À bientôt!